Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. This is the podcast where I talk about your personal, professional, and spiritual growth, and where I will eventually take live calls to help you go from stuck to growth. I am your host, Joshua Bridwell, and I want to start off this episode with something really, really exciting. I want to thank all of you for your support of my last video. It is the video that has performed the best, which is really encouraging because I want to make sure that I'm putting out content that is relevant for you, that is something that you can actually connect with. I started with 68 subscribers before I put out the last video, and right now I'm at 101. So thank you all very much for your support and for nearly 5,000 views on my last video. I hope that you can connect with this episode as well, and we can just kind of keep that ball rolling. If you find something in this episode that connects with you, or even my last episode, if you could share it, I would really appreciate your support. And hey, today, real talk. If you felt like your mind is just really scattered lately, I promise you're not by yourself. You might feel like you're trying to focus, but it just really won't stick. You're not wrong. You're not just tired, which ties into my last video. And today I'm going to show you why. Because behind the scenes of your brain, there's cold, hard data, and it's painting a picture of a nationwide attention crisis. If you think that you're doing life just fine or if you're getting by, it doesn't mean that your brain's okay. We need to acknowledge that. It means that you are surviving, but that damage is slowly stacking up day over day. So let's walk through this together. Back in the year 2000, just 25 years ago, research found that the average adult attention span was about 12 seconds. Now, most recent studies show that it's about 8.25 seconds. That means that as a generation, within just 25 years, we can now focus less than a goldfish. Let that sink in. Our focus right now is less than a goldfish. And I have discovered this as I'm trying to do stuff on social media. You have to grab their attention super, super quick. But content aside, let's think about what this does to productivity, what this does to creativity, what this does to relationships. But it gets worse. On average, the typical smartphone user gets about 46 notifications a day. I personally think between social media, text messages, emails, phone calls, sports apps, whatever you have on your phone, I think 46 notifications is pretty low, but that's on the average day. Other studies show ranges as high as 60 to 80 notifications per day. I think that's a much better average, but sometimes even more, especially if you're using multiple apps. For some people, especially younger folks, that leads to a phenomenon known as alert fatigue, where the brain becomes hyper reactive to disruption. And what that does is it actually causes anxiety to rise. Your brain is constantly active and being bombarded, it's being overstimulated, it's being forced to switch between hundreds or thousands of things every single day. Every single one of those switches cost you energy, it costs you clarity, and it costs you sanity. You think that multitasking makes you efficient, but science says you're wrong. Actually, I used to think that I was a really great multitasker. I could do this, I could do this, and I realized that I wasn't really getting anything done. And studies show that multitasking or frequent task switching can reduce productivity by about 40%. Every single time that you get distracted, it opens up a tab in your brain. You check your phone, you glance at a notification, your brain needs time to reset. And that reset costs you time and focus. Over time, all those resets, they add up. That's why you sit with a project for 15 minutes, you get distracted. And suddenly you realize that 2 hours passed and absolutely nothing got done. If you feel scattered, if you feel really foggy brained, or if you feel like your brain just won't turn off, it won't settle, that's not you failing. I promise it is not you failing. Your brain is just overloaded each and every day. And this isn't just a personal problem, this is a problem as a culture. We have built a system that constantly demands our attention and then shames us when we can't keep up. This is a hot take, but I believe that ADD, ADHD is a diagnosis that is overly diagnosed. Do not hear me say that I don't believe that ADD or ADHD is a legitimate mental disorder or a mental difference. It is, but I believe that we overdiagnose ADD, ADHD, and that's a way that we shame people for not being able to keep up because the system has been built against us as a culture. That's with notifications, that's with alerts, that's with messages, emails, social media, ads, tired of seeing ads, and instant updates that can create constant anxiety. The anxiety could be you get a notification on your phone's in your pocket, on the table, you hear a buzz, and you're constantly wondering, okay, what did that say? What did that say? I'm guilty of that. And it's no wonder that fewer than 20% of Americans today read for pleasure daily. That's because deep focus feels like a luxury. Even our ability to learn deeply, whether that's reading long form content, whether that is to think long term, it is being taken away. It is being eroded by this quick scroll culture. You're not just losing focus. You're not. You're losing the capacity to think deeply, to plan long term, and to grow steadily and consistently. There is something called cognitive atrophy. We see it more and more with the introduction of AI into our daily lives. Cognitive atrophy is when you don't have to perform a task, your brain stops learning how to do that task and actually can forget. For example, somebody that is a creative writer that doesn't use AI, they're sharpening that muscle. But if somebody uses AI for creative writing, they don't have to think as hard. And because they don't have to rely on their own brain power, their brain disassociates from that task. And doing that long term actually creates regression in that skill. You're not just losing focus, you're losing the ability to think. And outside of that, what does this cultural attention crisis cost you? And all of us. One, mental exhaustion. Even when nothing bad is happening, you wake up tired, you're overstimulated, you go to bed tired, and when you rest, you don't actually recharge. It can create shallow thinking where you're watching thoughts bounce around, but there's no depth, there's no meaning behind those, there's no clarity. It can create spiritual dryness where you can't connect deeply with God if your brain is on fast forward. Prayer, reflection, peace, they all go extinct when your brain is overstimulated. And it also creates lost potential. Ideas that could build wealth for you, relationships, legacy, that is all flushed down the drain because focus has left the building. And this isn't about getting less done. This is about losing the you that God meant for you to be. So here's what I'm doing and what I encourage you to try this week. I want you to stop the notification insanity. I want you to go into the settings on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, and I want you to turn off all of the non essential alerts. You don't need 56 pings a day to live a good life. In fact, it is creating a not great life for you. And you will see that if you do this. Number two is I want you to set focus blocks. What does this mean? It means that I want you to sit down and I want you to work for 25 minutes completely undistracted. And then take a 5-minute break and then repeat. And watch what happens when your brain is not constantly rebooting. Number three, I want you to have just a 5-minute daily silence ritual. No phones, no noise, just you and quiet. You can choose scripture, prayer, reflection, or if you want, you can just sit there, close your eyes, and just breathe. Just relax. Just 5 minutes. That's all. Then I want you to focus on one task at a time. I have a coworker, and if you're watching this and you're the coworker, I may not get this 100% correct, but this is my understanding. She went home the other day. She sat in the sauna and she was reading while on her tablet, while also listening to music. She had her kids running around, and she was saying that she's really great at multitasking. But I want you to just focus on one task at a time, because I'm telling you, none of that time was as focused as it could be. If you're writing, just write. If you're reading, just read. If you're working, guess what? Just work. Not reading plus scrolling plus listening to music plus thinking about dinner while in the sauna. Just one thing. Simple, focused, pure. That's it. And then protect your rest. Sleep. Real sleep. No screens 1 hour before bed. No blue light, no news, no alerts. Let your brain fully recover. And if you're feeling drained right now, like your mind is really foggy, nothing sticks, nothing's making sense, I want you to hear me. You're not doing anything wrong. You are not bad at focusing. You're living in a world that is constantly draining you, and it is built that way. But you can take control. You can reset and you can reclaim that clarity that you feel that you've lost, because the world might be shrinking our attention. In fact, I'm going to just say the world is shrinking our attention. There are stats to prove that, but it doesn't mean that you have to just live life on fast forward. What I mean by that is if you're sitting down and you're doing a task, when is the last time you sat down to do a task and you actually got it done? And I'm going to add a layer to that. You actually got it done without thinking about the next task that you had to do, because that's living life on fast forward. You were made for depth. You were made for purpose. You were made for legacy. And the first step back is simple. Take back your focus. I want you to do these things. I want you to be bold. I want you to go against the culture that is made to drain you. If you do that, here's the thing. It's called the 1% for a reason. If you genuinely want to join the 1%, which is typically referring to the top 1% of the wealthiest people in the country. But for this sake, I want you to join the 1% of the culture that is living life to the absolute fullest. And the way to do that is to do things that the 99% are not doing. If the culture is losing their focus, whatever you do, fight to get your focus back. You deserve that. I just gave you some steps to start with that. And for the people in your life that you care about, I want you to help them get their focus back as well. So please share this episode. We had fantastic results on the previous episode. I want to keep that ball rolling. And I want to continue to help you just live the absolute best life that you can. I want you to live the life that God has planned for you. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Joshua Bridwell Show. Tune in next time, and as always, let's grow.